All right, today we're taking a look at a really unique market analysis method. It's called market DNA. What we're going to do is a visual walkthrough of its documentation, specifically for the asset SOL, and this is all based on data for November 14th, 2025. So let's see what this system is all about.
So, here's the game plan. We'll start by introducing what market DNA even is. Then, we'll dive into its core framework, which is this four-phase cycle. From there, we'll get practical and see how Phase 1 is applied to SOL, looking at the entry points, the risk parameters, and the potential targets. And of course, we'll finish up with some really important disclaimers. Let's jump in.
Okay, first up, introducing market DNA. So what in the world is this proprietary geometric system? Let's unpack the official definition.
So according to the documentation, market DNA is a proprietary geometric system. Now the key thing to get here, the really big takeaway, is that it doesn't use any of the conventional indicators you might be familiar with. The stuff most traders use. Instead, it's all about using these predefined geometric shapes to map out a market cycle.
And this next part is, honestly, what makes it so different. It's really defined by what it's not. I mean, just look at this list. It actively avoids all the usual suspects. We're talking no technical analysis, no fundamental analysis. It doesn't use Fibonacci or Elliott waves or any of those classic chart patterns. The whole point is that it's designed to be a completely self-contained system, running on its own unique geometric logic.
Okay, so if it throws out all those traditional tools, what does it actually use? Well, the answer is its core framework, something called the four-phase cycle. Let's break down what that structure looks like.
The whole process is mapped out in these four distinct phases. It all kicks off with Phase 1, which is the entry. After that, the model looks for specific events to happen, like something called mirror contact and an N-level event. And finally, the whole thing wraps up with Phase 4, which is completion. You can think of this sequence as the DNA of the entire analysis.
All right, enough with the theory. Let's see this thing in action. We're now diving into Phase 1, specifically the entry and the risk parameters. And the asset we're looking at, the one being documented, is SOL. This particular cycle is identified as SOL_1_1.
Okay, here it is. This is the SOL chart from the documentation date. You can see this whole geometric structure, the triangles, that big trapezoid, just laid right on top of the price action. Now, according to the document, we are currently in Phase 1. And why is that? It's because the price has reached that primary entry level, which you can see as labeled M.
This table gives us the exact numbers for these Phase 1 levels. So that primary entry, M, that we just saw on the chart, that was triggered at a price of 135.89. But there's more. The model also sets a secondary entry point, called PC, way down at 54.88. This is a really crucial piece of the system's risk management plan. It's there just in case the price takes a dive after that first entry.
So the next big question is, how do you figure out how much to trade? Well, the model is incredibly specific about this. I'm going to read this directly from the source material because it's mandatory. Both trade sizes are calculated using the hypothetical capital, the investor's maximum allowed drawdown, the third triangle domain percentage, the risk coefficient, and the contract size. So yeah, this isn't just a guideline, it's a fundamental part of the entire method.
And here are the exact numbers that feed into that calculation for this particular SOL cycle. Everything is based on a hypothetical $100,000 portfolio. And really important, there's a hard stop on risk, a maximum allowed drawdown of 5% or $5,000. Then you have these other inputs like trapezoid time duration and third triangle domain, which are specific to the model itself. And all of these get factored into the final trade size.
So what happens when you plug all those numbers we just saw into the model's formula? This is what it spits out. The total position size is calculated to be a very precise 77.66 units of SOL. But here's the key. That total amount is split right down the middle. It's divided into two identical trades of 38.83 units each. One trade is for that first M entry, and the other is waiting for that potential PC entry.
Okay, so we've got the setup, we've got the risk management. Now let's get to the part everyone's curious about. What are the potential outcomes? Let's take a look at the different target scenarios that are laid out for Phase 1.
The model lays out three distinct profit targets, and as you can probably guess, they're all tied directly to the geometry on the chart. T1 is the first hurdle, what's called the mirror. T2 is a really key level at the apex of that third triangle. The model actually calls this a safe exit. And finally, you have T3. This one is right at the top of that big trapezoid, and it's marked as the full exit for the entire cycle.
So let's walk through the first scenario. This is the simple one.
This assumes the price just goes up right after hitting that first M entry, and it never drops down to that secondary PC level. If that one trade is held all the way to the final target, T3, well, the model projects an expected profit of just under $7,000. On that hypothetical capital, that works out to a return of about 6.9%.
But what if the opposite happens? What if the price drops first? Well, that's exactly what scenario 2 is for. In this case, both entry points get hit, the initial M and then the lower PC. Now, because you've got that second, cheaper entry, your average buy-in price is much lower, and that means the potential profit, if the targets are reached, jumps way up. We're talking a projected profit of over $13,600, which would be a return of almost 14%.
Okay, and to wrap things up, we absolutely have to go over the disclaimers. The documentation is extremely clear about the context here and the limitations of the model. So let's make sure we're all on the same page with these important notices.
This right here is the #1 thing to remember. The analysis is for public model documentation and verification purposes only. That's it. This isn't a recommendation, it's not a prediction. The whole point is just to put the model out there publicly so that people can watch it and see for themselves how it performs over time.
And that leads us to these mandatory disclaimers. These are the hard and fast rules that come with the model. Let's be crystal clear. This is not financial advice. Leverage above 10 is strictly prohibited. You should never invest essential personal funds, and the risk management has to follow the specific instructions to the letter. It's all about documenting this model's performance inside a very strict, very controlled set of conditions.
And so, all of this brings us to the one central question, the whole reason this documentation exists in the first place. As this cycle unfolds, how will the market's actual path line up with this predefined geometric framework? That's the big question, isn't it? The goal here isn't to guess the answer, but simply to observe and document what comes next.